And then translating, once you've kind of figured out who your man and woman is, then you start working with those characters of those things, those men and women for each job. So it's like I love creating characters. That's one of the most important things I learned working with Katie Grant at Pop was, for every story I came up with a character. It was like writing a role for an actress. And then I would sit and talk to the model about it. Okay, like I did this one story, I'm like, you're in Twin Peaks. And this girl is like from Russia and 15, and she's like, what? I'm like, Twin Peaks. So I pulled it up on YouTube. I'm like, what's her name? It was Laura Flynn Boyle in the one that I watched, and the two characters, like Donna and Laura, I think. Laura Palmer, that's it. So, I mean, come on. It's so major. And we're like outside of London in literally a trailer park. And this 15-year-old girl, and she's like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I pulled up on YouTube, and while she was in hair and makeup, I was having her watch Twin Peaks so she could understand a little bit. I mean, she thought I was crazy, but at least she got some context around what kind of character she was playing. And that's like another thing that's so important with the storytelling is being able to communicate it to your models, to your hair and makeup teams, to your assistants who are doing your research and your pulling. So, it's in the photographer. I mean, photographers are our largest collaborators on most jobs. And if they don't know what story you're telling, you're in trouble, like big, big trouble. So, there's the actual creating the story, and then there's being able to communicate it powerfully. And also to incorporate other people's ideas, because all those creative teams are going to have their own ideas of how they're going to want to do things, and so it's how to take care of them and stay inside of, your narrative. So, any questions about stories?
How, when you're doing a celebrity for editorial, how would you?
And their own thing that they do. And trust me, I've had to work with a lot of celebrities that their thing was not my thing. Like, not my thing. And I was shooting them for Vogue, which means they have to look a certain way. Otherwise, it's going to get killed. And so it becomes a super fine art of figuring out how to make them comfortable and still telling the story you want to tell. So, like, we'll talk about this a lot tomorrow, but I always do research on that person, on that celebrity, and their identity, and I look at, usually they'll have colors they stick to, because they're not strategic like us. They're not inside of this whole crazy story about why they're picking out every single little thing that we're picking out. They're just drifting. They're just like, oh, I like this bracelet. They're not being super, and usually, especially if they're from LA, no offense about it, I work in LA, a lot of the stylists there they're not doing what we're talking about. The competitive advantage from having this kind of background is insane. This is why Grace and Katie and Maria Amelie are so good at what they do, because they're working from this. And this is, that's how I created it, was like watching them over the last year, so many years. And Camilla Nickerson and all those people. But a lot of the celebrity stylists are just appeasing whoever they're dressing. So they're just, oh, you like that dress? Great, we'll put you in that dress. And when I'm working with a celebrity, I have the conversation with them of, what are we achieving? What are we working to do here? Because I need to know all that in order to know what to put you in. But when you're working with someone for the first time on an editorial, you have to build trust with them, because they're not going to trust you. Stylists have walked in with celebrities so many times, especially on magazine shoots. It's the biggest nightmare, because magazine shoots, they don't know, it's a crapshoot. Like, who are they going to get? It's seriously like Russian roulette. And so they're walking in, their publicist is going to be defending them against you. So you have to build trust immediately with their publicist and with the celebrity. And I do that by having the most amazing rack of clothes that they could not possibly be upset with me. So, I mean, luckily when I started doing that the first time, I was doing it with Vogue. So it's like I had the names, but I made sure I was like on top of my requests. I made sure to have and I did my research to find out, okay, this person really likes Michael Kors or whoever they like, or if they had like brands that I really don't like, then I would be like, oh, okay, well they like this style. And you start to look at what is their voice. And then you're like, okay, how do I do my version of their voice because you're only ever gonna be able to do what you wanna do, like what you can do, right? Like your voice is just what you do. And people will hire you based on that. And the magazine, in most cases, has to put you in that job because they like your voice, and they want your voice to combine with that celebrity. They're really strategic about it. I mean, even you'd be surprised, some of the magazine editors. I'm like, really? You know, they're like, you want me to, really? And it ends up being great. You know, because they saw something about that person and about me that I never thought the combination would work, and it ended up being great. You know, so I think the biggest artillery you can have when you're working with someone who definitely has their own thing going on already is just to have the most beautiful rack of clothes that fits inside of their comfort zone, which is usually length, like the common fitting things. Like, they like to show their shoulders. They hate their shoulders. They like to always wear jackets. They're like, I worked with one musician, she refused to wear heels. So I called in the coolest men's shoes in the small size, Dior Homme and all this stuff. She was ecstatic. And she was apparently a nightmare, I'd heard from other people, but we had so much fun because I looked at what she liked, and then I just pulled all my favorite things inside of what made her comfortable. And I had like Dior Homme and Dries and Victor and Roll. I mean, I had this huge, amazing, beautiful Victor and Roll fur coat, and I thought she was like, she's a vegan. And I'm like, I'm just gonna take it anyway. We'll just see. I mean, she might throw paint at me, but it'll be fine. Like, I'll figure it out. And she loved it. It was her favorite coat on the whole shoot, because people just, because I knew she loved jackets and coats. So, and people didn't usually bring that because they had a preconceived notion that because she wears vegan clothes, like, she would never wear fur. But, you know, so it's really about figuring, and we'll talk a lot about it tomorrow, because there's so many, because when you're working with celebrity, you have you have 2 extra clients to take care of. You have your client, that's your real client, that's paying the bills, or giving you the story or whatever you're doing, and you have to make them happy, but you also have to really make the celebrity and their publicist happy. And those publicists will give you so much work if they like you, and the money that will come rolling in, I mean, seriously, hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. So it's like, it's a really fun psychological test to take care of people like, I mean, because there's customer service. You know, what we're doing is a lot of customer service, and people, I mean, like, I'm like sitting looking at them like, we do sales and we do customer service. And that sounds like so not fashion, but it's what we do. And you know, it's like you do it with hair and makeup. You know, every time you make them feel good, and because people are not going to be creative with you and give you the space to be creative with them if they don't feel taken care of. I mean, that's all we're doing is taking care of people, but we're doing it through our specific creative voice of what, you know, people hire you based on what your voice is. And that's why portfolios are so important. Portfolios are so important. So, yeah. Anything else? Did it answer your question? Okay. Anything else about storytelling? No? Okay, so we'll talk